Hello and welcome to the Youth Workforce Development Sustainable Agriculture and Food Security Concurrent Session. I'm Sean Dogan, the pastor of the Long Branch Baptist Church and also a Eat Smart Move More Board of Director member. I'm also the chairman of Mill Community Ministry, and I am so happy to be with you today. Food insecurity is present in rural and urban areas. Neighborhoods in urban areas could experience food insecurities because there's not a grocery store in walking distance, unemployment, or a number of uncontrollable reasons like a pandemic. In Greenville, South Carolina, Mill Community Ministries have been feeding communities, educating, and developing youth for workforce readiness and transforming lives of thousands of people, young and old. Coming together under a common goal and partnering with like-minded organizations can create opportunities for improving community health. I am honored to introduce today's speakers from Mill Community Ministries, Rachel Packard and Chris Spires. I hope that you enjoy this session.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you, everybody. My name is Chris Spires. I am the AmeriCorps member at Mill Village Farms, which is one of Mill Community Ministries' social enterprises. Rachel Packard could not make it today. She had other commitments. She is actually one of our farmers, and that schedule can be pretty unpredictable. So she got caught up on the farm and is unable to make it today. So I will be taking over this presentation, talking about some of what we do at Mill Village Farms in Greenville, South Carolina. So I just wanted to start with some pictures to showcase what we do. That's our logo in the center of the screen. We are Mill Village Farms, and our tagline or motto, you might say, is growing food and growing jobs. So Mill Village Farms is a youth development nonprofit located in Greenville, South Carolina, and we are also a network of urban organic farms located across the Greenville area. So we use sustainable agriculture as a platform for youth development and youth employment. So you can see in some of these pictures that have been taken over the years, some pictures of our farms and our plots of land, and then some pictures of some of our staff working with some of our youth crews. That's actually Rachel in the top left, working with one of our students this past fall in one of our greenhouses. So yeah, what we do is we grow food and grow jobs, essentially. We employ local youth to work on our farms. We kind of target it at youth who haven't had a job yet. Our goal is to have this be their first job or one of the first jobs, because not only do we employ them to work on our farms, we pay them a paycheck, we treat it like a job, but we're also very intentional about the development aspect of it, which is something that sets us apart from other employers in most areas. So we're very intentional about the development of the youth that come through our program. We have a lot of one-on-one conversations with them. We have a lot of feedback sessions. We have a standards chart that they have to adhere to. We're very aimed at making sure that all the students who come through our program do a lot of self-reflection and get a lot of feedback and have the opportunity to think about their strengths and leave our programming more equipped for the rest of their lives, whether it is another job or whether it's the rest of high school or whether they're going to college, whatever their next steps are, we want them to be well endowed with things like responsibility and self-efficacy and confidence and things like that. So that is the bare bones of what we do on our farms, but I'll dive into more detail about what we do. So in order to talk about our organization, it's really important to talk about our origins, I believe. So Mill Village Farms originally began in 2012 as an outreach program of Long Branch Baptist Church and Grace Church in Greenville, South Carolina. So our executive director, Dan Weidenbenner, at the time, he was in kind of an intern role at Grace Church, and he was just part of a few different partnership initiatives between Long Branch and Grace. and was just kind of part of a lot of conversations asking about needs in the communities of Grace and Long Branch. So to clarify, Grace Church is a very extensive network of churches that have campuses all across the upstate South Carolina area, and Long Branch is a very historic, predominantly African American church located in West Greenville. So very different congregations, very different backstories and histories behind the churches, but they have a strong partnership and a strong relationship. And so Dan was part of some conversations being had by some staff and officials in the church, just talking to members of the congregation, asking, what the community needed. And they were hearing a lot of youth in the congregation saying things like, oh, what we need, what this community needs and what we need employment opportunities. We need jobs. These are early high schoolers who felt like the employment scene wasn't too promising for someone their age. They were just saying, we want places to work, we want opportunities to make money and to be self-sufficient. And another common thread or common thing that they were hearing from these conversations was a lot of people, mainly medical professionals and healthcare workers, talking about seeing really concerning rates of illness and death amongst members of the community from preventable causes such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, things that they quickly and easily tied back to the diets of members of the community. And so in having these conversations, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold a little bit. In having these conversations, Dan, our executive director at the time, it just kind of hatched this idea of this perfect synthesis of the needs that he was seeing in the community members. He saw a lot of teenagers wanting job opportunities, and he saw a lot of other people concerned about all the health problems that we're seeing in all these populations in Greenville. And he thought, okay, well, why not combine these two issues to create one solution? And that was repurpose some land, plant some healthy produce, and employ youth to work on the farms and then distribute that produce to the community. And you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, where you're giving, excuse me, we're giving high school students and middle school students a job opportunity and an opportunity to make money. And you're also producing something with that opportunity and distributing healthy food to the community. So I think it's really important to talk about that story, because the foundations of our organization were built up from asking thoughtful questions about community needs. This wasn't some, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. Sorry about that. So this wasn't some external assessment, someone coming in and saying, I think this is what these communities need. It was kind of from the ground up. It was community members voicing their concerns and providing their own insights from within their own communities. And from that, Mill Village Farms was launched as kind of like an outreach project between Long Branch and Grace Church. That was back in 2012. And since then, Mill Village Farms has evolved quite a bit. So you've heard of Mill Community Ministries. Pastor Dogan in the intro mentioned Mill Community Ministries, and I might have as well, but Mill Village Farms has kind of been incorporated into a network of social enterprises or sister organization nonprofits underneath Mill Community Ministries, which is that blue logo at top. So basically, Mill Village Farms evolved and the programming expanded, and it went from being an outreach program to its own independent nonprofit organization. And similarly, there were other community development initiatives occurring in the Greenville area. So a lot of them just kind of merged into this collective of organizations that are operated and managed by Mill Community Ministries. So I think it's important to talk about the whole collective, because it helps you gain insight into some of the work that Mill Community Ministries does and some of the work that Mill Village Farms helps out with. So on the left, you have Mill Village Farms, which is, as I've described, our youth development and sustainable agriculture nonprofit. We have Three, soon to be five actually, three urban farms. We've acquired two more across the Greenville area. And we use organic practices. We're not organic certified, but we do use organic practices, and we grow local food for the community and employ some high school students while we're at it. And then Foodshare Greenville is actually part of a network of food share organizations, part of Foodshare South Carolina. So food share organizations are all across the state, but Foodshare Greenville, our food share, is tied directly with Mill Village Farms, and kind of the staff kind of floats back and forth between those two initiatives. But what Foodshare Greenville does is, and I'll go into this a little bit in more detail later, it distributes boxes of fresh fruits and vegetables to the community in an effort to help reduce food insecurity and help reduce the severity of food deserts in the area. So people who might not have access to fresh, healthy produce, we supply that to those communities in an effort to just increase instances of healthy living. And Foodshare has also been taking on some educational initiatives recently, trying to increase educational resources for community members about healthy eating and healthy lifestyles and things of that nature. But I'll talk more about those later. And there's Village Wrench, which started as an outreach program of another church in Greenville. And what Village Wrench does is it's a bike shop that does free bike repair once a month. So there are sites all across Greenville where people can come in to these sites and have their bikes repaired for free. And there are mechanics and project managers there that will kind of guide them through the process and make the bike owners part of the repair process, but it is free. And they also refurbish and sell bikes. But another thing that they do is called the Earn a Bike program. And people can exchange the bikes that have been donated or refurbished for community service hours. So, for example, if a bike comes in that is valued really high, people can exchange a higher amount of service hours, but it's trying to encourage community service. So people of all ages can come in with proof of community service and exchange that for a brand new bike or a refurbished bike. And they also run their own youth development program through a curriculum they call Six Cycle. It's 6 weeks, a 6-week class that concerns kind of bike ridership and how to ride your bike and how to be a good bike rider, but also teaches them some basic mechanic skills and also character development skills and professional development skills as well. And those students who go through that program often work in the bike shop as youth apprentices and learn some of the basics of retail and customer service and things of that nature. And they are paid and employed, and it is treated like a job once they reach that stage. So that's what Village Wrench does. And then Village Launch is another initiative that began at Grace Church, and it is a small business entrepreneurship academy. They offer classes to business owners who are trying to get their businesses off the ground, or maybe they have already established themselves, but they're trying to be connected to resources or expand their network, and they can enroll in classes and get paired up with mentors and just help to get their businesses off the ground or to accelerate them further. I'll probably have to be clearing my throat a lot. I'm sorry. I haven't talked a lot recently and I'm still getting over this cold. And then Village Engage is, it's our advocacy and social justice education program that we have. It's part of the Just Faith Network, which from my understanding is a national network of organizations. But what Village Engage does is it tries to increase educational resources about activism and social justice in faith-based communities and kind of teaching people about how social justice and advocacy are very integral to a faith-based life. And they train facilitators and they do reconciliation ceremonies. They partner with the Equal Justice Initiative and do some Equal Justice Initiative projects. So that's kind of what Mill Community Ministries does. And then we have staff who work for Mill Community Ministries, the umbrella nonprofit, who kind of handle the operations and the fundraising for other organizations and things like that. But that is the community development collective that is Mill Community Ministries, and Mill Village Farms is kind of the original in a way that started back in 2012. So, like I said earlier, the two aspects of our motto or tagline at Mill Village Farms are growing food and growing jobs. And while those are very closely connected. I think it's one way to talk about it is kind of splitting them up and talking about growing food and then also talking about growing jobs. So when we talk about growing food, we're talking about growing fresh and healthy produce to distribute locally to different people in the community. We are trying to reduce the severity of food deserts and of food insecurity. I mentioned this earlier briefly, but broadly speaking, food insecurity and food deserts refer to areas where people don't have consistent and reliable access to fresh, healthy produce. So that could be an area where the easiest and maybe the primary option for food is a Family Dollar or a gas station, and there aren't any grocery stores that are accessible in the area. Or food insecurity could also be caused by economic hardship, like Pastor Dogan mentioned, that shot up during the pandemic because everyone was facing economic hardship. And then also more recently, we've tried to increase educational resources about healthy eating. So we do this with our students. We do a lot of cooking classes where we cook with some of the produce that we cook on the farm or that we grow on the farm, and then we cook with it. With Foodshare, we have done some cooking classes recently where we take what we give to people in the Foodshare boxes and we base recipes based on what's in the boxes. And then we host classes kind of as a fun event to get people, engaged in the cooking process and give them an idea of what to cook that's in the box. And just teaching them about some of the values of healthy eating and some of the ways that you can incorporate healthy decisions into your lifestyle and into your food choices. And then the other aspect of the tagline of Mill Village Farms is growing jobs. So like I said earlier, we're employing youth to work on the farms. We do have full-time farm staff. It's not entirely managed by high schoolers. Rachel, who couldn't be here today, she's one of the full-time farm staff, and we have another full-time farmer as well, and a couple more part-time now that we've acquired some new plots of land. So they're there full-time, but fall, spring, winter, summer, we bring in different crews of high schoolers to work on the farm and to assist the farm manager and farm director with production, but also to teach them important job and life skills. So we're very, very intent on having conversations about certain skills we want them to develop, like proper workplace communication, knowing who to talk to and what to talk to them about, knowing what's not appropriate to talk about at work, just things like that. And then also, of course, the soft skills that kind of come as a product of just working at any entry-level job. Learning about pay, learning about respecting the chain of command, things like that. We do that through the workday, like I said, but also through mentorship. So each season, depending on the volume of students that we hire, summer, the picture you see on the slide was taken during the summer. I'm actually in that picture on the far right, back when I was an intern. The summer is our biggest season. We hire the most students because none of them are in school. And that summer 2019, we hired 28 students at the beginning of the summer, which is the biggest season we've ever had. And naturally, when you hire that many students, you have to hire other people to help manage those students. So I was hired as an intern. I'm gonna have to take another break to drink some water. Give me just a second. Excuse me, thank you. So I was hired as an intern. A crew leader was my title, and I kind of took a group of students under my wing. There were 4 crew leaders for all the students. So we each had our own little group of students that we kind of guided through the workday. We were the ones who were in charge of making sure they showed up on time, tracking their off days, tracking their pay, that type of thing. But we also provided mentorship for them. So once a week, we would try to have conversations with all the students in our own respective crews, and we would kind of reflect on the week, give them the opportunity to give us feedback, and then we would give them feedback. Hey, this is what you did really well this week. I noticed that you did this, and I was really proud of you when you did this, and I would explain why I think that this is such a good thing that you did. Or, hey, I noticed that you're really struggling with this week. Like, let's talk about that more. Like, what's been going on? How can I help you improve? Just having a lot of conversations like that, really encouraging them to recognize the importance of self-reflection and hoping that we can instill that in them at a young age. So for the rest of their lives, they understand the value of being a really active listener and paying attention and valuing, what goes on in the workplace, or really at any dimension of their life, whether it's school or their home life or any other jobs. So we have a very large emphasis on mentorship as well. And then in addition to the lessons that they learn on the farm, those soft job and life skills and those self-reflection skills from mentorship, we also teach them classes. We teach development classes with topics such as nutrition, fitness, personal finance, public speaking. We have a job and life skills class, actually. So we are trying to teach them skills that they don't necessarily learn in the conventional modern education system. Things have changed since I've been the same age as our students, or the age that our students are currently at. I haven't been in high school for several years, but when I was in high school, I never learned about personal finance. I never learned job and life skills. I didn't know how to write a resume. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. So we tried to fill in some of the gaps that are in these students' lives. So we teach them about topics that we think are important, but we're not being redundant with what they're already learning at school. We're trying to teach them things that they should know, but don't necessarily know. So this past fall, I taught a personal finance class, and I also incorporated some other things. We had a professionalism class. I taught a mindfulness class. That was interesting. And then in the winter, we brought some of our returning students back and taught them more about agriculture and food. And Rachel and I co-taught that class, and we just talked a lot about the food system, talked a lot about community-based agriculture models and things like that. And we chose the returning students who'd already worked on the farm, because we wanted them to come back and work on the farm in later seasons and kind of assume more of a mentor responsibility role for the newer students, which I will actually talk about in a further slide. But teach a lot of classes too. It's very educational, and we have to be very careful because these students are burnt out, especially this year with COVID. Everybody's burnt out. Everyone's sick of online learning. Very little room left in their brains for more material. So we try to make it accessible too. So just an idea of our impact and kind of how we measured things. In 2020, our initiatives kind of went down. Everyone remembers back in March of 2020 when everything kind of shut down. We had to cease our operations in a lot of ways. We canceled our spring crew like not even a month in. We had to reduce the size of our summer crew. You can actually see in the picture on this slide, the students you see there with our staff, because a lot of those are staff members, but the students there, that was our summer crew. There were 8 students on the summer in summer of 2020, which is much smaller than 2019. But you can see that in 2020, we had 22 youth employment opportunities over the course of the entire year and 60 youth training opportunities, which training opportunities essentially translates directly to the classes that we offered, because, we offer classes to our students working on the farm, but we also offer classes to students in the community. So the job and life skills class that we offered, it's a curriculum called Powered for Life. And we teach about things like really just any workforce development topic. So we talk about customer service, we talk about conflict resolution, how to write a resume, how to apply for a job. We do practice interviews with volunteers. It's a lot of fun, but we teach that to community. So we reach a wider breadth of students than just the ones who come and work on the farm. And then often the students who pass through that class, they kind of make up our applicant pool for students that we ask to work on the farm, or at least that we hope work on the farm. So we teach them the skills, and then we hope to put them in practice on the farm, and we guide them through the process if they need help. But in 2019, we had 62 youth employment opportunities and 125 youth training opportunities. So with the vaccination rollout and with kind of just everyone's adjustment to the pandemic, it doesn't have the novelty of fear that it had in early 2020. In 2021, we're hoping to get our numbers back up and hoping to provide some stable job opportunities to a lot more students, and to just really be able to reach as many as we can with the educational opportunities as well. Another thing that we've started to do recently on the farm, I mentioned this a minute or two ago, we want to train the youth to be mentors. So rather than just having them pass through the farm and learn how to be led, we want them to become leaders as well. So in winter 2020, like I said, Rachel and I created and implemented a new sustainable food and agriculture curriculum. We invited students who had worked on the farm in past seasons to return and work on the farm in the winter, and then also take this class. So we were teaching them about the basics of growing food, community-based agriculture, the principles of sustainability, teaching them about the food system and the importance of organics and things like that. And while we're doing that, we were also kind of implementing a more learning-based work model on the farm. So you can see in this picture on the right, we have these aquaponic towers in our greenhouse on one of our farm sites. And Rachel hatched this idea of having the students kind of take ownership literally of these aquaponic towers. So I think we had 20, and we had each student take on ownership of 3 or 4. And you can see a couple of students are holding a checklist. And so they would come to work, they'd have their checklist, you know, did you check for this? Are there any bugs? How does this tower look? How does that tower work? And they just kind of had ownership of like, this is yours. This is your responsibility. You have been given the knowledge to take care of this. You have people here to guide you through the process. And if you have questions, you know, there are farm staff to answer them. I was there to answer them as well, but we're trying to engender a sense of responsibility, self-efficacy, that type of thing. So that's been a new program that we tried to implement. And then we're currently in the process of recruiting those same students back to work on the farm this summer during our biggest season, when we have a whole new wave of new students coming in who are completely new to Mill Village Farms and to our operations and programming. And our hope is that these returning students can lead them and can, you know, help them with the farm tasks and can tell them about this plant or about this growing method or how we do things the way we do. Like, that's our hope. Yeah, encouraging them to take on greater responsibility and more of a mentor role. So just a little bit about our philosophy on the farm. I've talked about a lot of this through the course of just explaining our programming, but we want a workplace that is safe and productive and engaging, and with a lot of opportunities to learn and grow. We want this to be, more than anything, an enjoyable learning opportunity for these students and for them to come out of this. And it wasn't just a job they had for a summer. They learned a lot from it, and they gained a lot from it, and they're better endowed for whatever comes next in their lives. And because of that, we have very clear expectations. We have a standards chart that they're expected to adhere to guide their behavior and track progress. We provide access to very realistic support. We want to make sure they're supported in their tasks, but we also, you know, kind of try to let them do things without being guided every single step of the way. We want to teach them about the role of local agriculture and community development and empowerment, and we want to engender that sense of self-efficacy and responsibility. So shifting to talk more about Foodshare Greenville, like I mentioned earlier, it's a produce distribution program, and we're trying to reduce food insecurity or just simply assist people facing economic hardship. So the way that the system works, for those who aren't familiar with the Foodshare South Carolina model, boxes are pre-ordered by customers and distributed bi-weekly. So we have orders coming in, and people can place them online or through our hotline. They cost $10 for people who pay with debit, credit, or cash, and $5 for people who are on SNAP or food stamps. And the boxes are about a $20 to $30 value. If you were to go to the grocery store and buy the contents of the box, that is on average what you'd be paying, but we sell it at a very subsidized price. And then we place the produce order, to a wholesale distributor out of Columbia, and we pack the boxes and then distribute them to those who ordered them. And we include recipe cards, and we have cooking classes, which I mentioned earlier, you know, trying to not just hand off food to our customers, but also teach them about what to do with it and about the tenets of healthy eating. Food insecurity during the pandemic is something that has skyrocketed. So some figures that kind of show how Foodshare Greenville's operations have literally exploded. In early 2020, so, you know, January, February, beginning of March, we were putting out about 100 to 300 boxes every other week on average. Spring and summer 2020, it very quickly jumped to 600 to 900 boxes every other week. And there was actually a period, I think it was sometime in April to the beginning of June, where we switched to every week. So it was 600, 900 boxes every single week. And another statistic that conveys that shift and that explosion of production and distribution is that in 2018, throughout the course of the entire year, we distributed 2,006 Foodshare boxes. That number more than doubled in 2019 to 4,642. And then it more than quadrupled to 19,980 in 2020, which is more than 300,000 pounds of produce. So as you can see, Foodshare is something that the community has really grown to utilize and to take advantage of, because economic insecurity and food insecurity have really blown up during the pandemic. And those numbers, the 600, 900 boxes every other week, that's also where we're still currently at in 2021. So we haven't gone back down to raw numbers. A question I get a lot when I talk about my job is, so those food share boxes, do all that produce, does all the produce come from the farm? The answer is no. Our farms are nowhere close to the size that would be necessary to supply all of our produce to the food share boxes, because we just have way too many food share boxes going out. We place orders for the majority of our food share food. But recently we have actually been very intentional about creating strategic plans to put our produce directly into food share boxes. So formerly we sold our produce a lot at farmers markets and different pop-up shops, but now the primary vendor for the farm is the food share boxes, which is convenient because it's within the same organizational structure. So we have redone and revamped how we've done things on the farm. We've changed around the structure and the planning and things like that to accommodate that and try to get food from our farm directly into food share boxes, which also gives our customers access to fresh and healthy produce. And it's a more efficient way of our growing food for people model that we have at Mill Village Farms, trying to get food that we grow locally out into the community. And you can see this picture graphic that I included. It's kind of a life cycle of some collards that we grew on one of our farms, packed and then distributed. That's Rachel putting it in a food share box. And that was a couple months ago. So in summary, what our organization is a community development nonprofit that we began from the bottom up. We wanted to assess the needs and wanted to address those needs based on what the community said their needs were. And we were very much intentional about making it a community-based model. We're growing food and growing jobs. We want to utilize sustainable small-scale agriculture as a means of youth employment and development. And we're trying to alleviate food insecurity with an approach that responds to resources that are already in the community. You know, people have to buy into the food share program. They have to want the produce. We're not just throwing things out at people. These are customers who want to be part of the program. And I think that's a really efficient way of reducing food insecurity, because it's those that need it. It's those that want to benefit from this program. So I'm sorry if I spoke too fast or too quickly, and I'm sorry about the complications with my scratchy throat. I love everything that we do at this organization, and I could geek out about it all day. So I hope that everything I said made sense. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, my name is Chris Byers. If you have any questions about what we do, or just want to connect with me about anything, I put my email right there, as well as my LinkedIn profile. But that's all I have today, and I would love some questions if anyone has any.